Hey warrior, there inevitably arrives a pivotal moment in every individual's life when they stand before the mirror and come to the stark realization that they've been merely drifting through existence, not actively growing, not deliberately constructing anything meaningful, but simply surviving day to day. The days begin to blur seamlessly into weeks, those weeks fade unnoticed into months, and before long, the months dissolve into years, leaving you suddenly confronted with the overwhelming and crushing weight of time that has been irretrievably wasted. The ancient Stoic philosophers, those wise thinkers from over 2,000 years ago, explicitly warned humanity about falling into this very trap. As Seneca so profoundly articulated in his writings, "You act like mortals in all that you fear and like immortals in all that you desire." These timeless words cut straight to the core because they lay bare a fundamental and often painful contradiction in the way we conduct our lives. We live in constant fear of the smallest, most trivial daily inconveniences, a potentially awkward or difficult conversation, a physically challenging workout session that pushes our limits, or the inherent discomfort that comes with learning something entirely new and unfamiliar. Yet, paradoxically, we behave as though we possess an infinite supply of tomorrows to finally pursue our deepest dreams, our loftiest aspirations, and the grand visions we hold for ourselves. We obsessively micromanage these minor anxieties and fleeting worries, all while engaging in massive-scale procrastination on the very pursuits and actions that have the potential to profoundly transform our entire existence. Time itself isn't something that's mysteriously stolen from us by outside forces or unforeseen circumstances. Rather, it slips away because we willingly surrender it, piece by piece, hour by hour, decision by decision, until one fateful day we awaken in shock, pondering with regret where exactly our lives have disappeared to. The great Roman philosopher Seneca, who possessed an unparalleled understanding of the intricate psychology behind human delay and hesitation, keenly observed that the vast majority of people don't truly live their lives to the fullest. Instead, they merely postpone the act of living, existing in a perpetual and endless state of preparation, always getting ready to finally get ready, forever teetering on the edge of actually beginning. My friend, it's important to recognize that it's not sheer laziness alone that destroys the vast potential lying within most people. Far more insidious is the habit of delay itself, that seductive, whispering voice in our minds that gently reassures us with, "Tomorrow. Tomorrow is when you'll finally get serious about improving your health and well-being. Tomorrow is the day you'll launch that business venture you've been dreaming about. Tomorrow you'll muster the courage for that difficult but necessary conversation. Tomorrow you'll start investing wisely in your future." But let me warn you, tomorrow stands as the most dangerous and deceptive word in any language across the world, for it boldly promises absolutely everything while reliably delivering absolutely nothing. This insidious pattern of constant delay is precisely why so many individuals pass away with what the poet Oliver Wendell Holmes so eloquently described as their music still in them, their untapped and unexpressed potential, their books that remain unwritten, their businesses that were never built, and their dreams that were left unlived and unrealized. In stark contrast, the Stoics adhered to a radically different and empowering philosophy. They championed the marriage of urgency with mindful presence, advocating for building one's life through systematic and intentional actions rather than passively hoping for some spontaneous or miraculous transformation to occur. They deeply understood that the gap separating who you currently are from who you have the capacity to become can only be bridged through deliberate, disciplined actions that are taken consistently and persistently over extended periods of time. Marcus Aurelius, who held the position of the most powerful man in the ancient world as the Roman emperor, amidst facing devastating plagues, relentless wars, and unending political pressures, confided in his private journals, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" Notice the profound simplicity here. He didn't frame it as the work of an emperor or a mighty ruler, but simply as that of a human being. Because he grasped the essential truth that our primary job and responsibility as human beings is not merely to accumulate impressive titles, vast wealth, or widespread recognition from others. Instead, it's to actively actualize our innate potential, to evolve into the fullest and most complete expression of what we are truly capable of becoming. Take a moment today to truly look around you and observe the people in your surroundings. You'll notice that most individuals have unconsciously stopped growing in key areas of their lives, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and even financially. They've settled into patterns of comfortable stagnation, following rote routines devoid of any deeper purpose, consuming endlessly without thoughtful intention, and merely existing without ever fully engaging in the act of living vibrantly. They've ceased the internal fight to unlock and pursue their own potential. However, this message isn't intended for those who are perfectly satisfied with a life of mediocrity and average outcomes. This is specifically for those among you who feel that silent, burning anger deep inside, the righteous and motivating anger that declares, "I know without a doubt that I am meant for so much more than this current reality." If that inner fire still smolders within you, then the time has come to stop negotiating or compromising with your own untapped potential and to start actively building the extraordinary life that you inherently know you are capable of living and deserving. Today, I'm not here to provide you with some temporary burst of motivation that will inevitably fade away by the end of next week, leaving you right back where you started. Instead, I'm here to deliver a systematic and structured wake-up call, one that's firmly grounded in ancient wisdom that has successfully transformed countless lives across more than 2 millennia. Because here's the brutal, unfiltered truth that you need to confront: if you continue to wander through life in a state of comfortable unconsciousness, blindly trusting in an endless parade of tomorrows that may never come, habitually blaming external circumstances for the consequences of your own internal choices, and passively waiting for those elusive perfect moments that will never materialize on their own, you will inevitably grow old carrying a heavy heart overflowing with crushing regrets. And as the Stoics profoundly knew and taught, regret stands as the heaviest and most burdensome load that a human soul can possibly bear. Epictetus, who remarkably rose from the chains of literal slavery to become one of history's most influential philosophical teachers, posed a question that should haunt and motivate every person who has been postponing their own path to greatness: how long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? I urge you to answer that question with complete and unflinching honesty. Haven't you already waited long enough? From this very moment forward, I challenge you to walk through life with a sense of focused urgency. Not frantic anxiety, not overwhelming panic, not scattered and frantic energy, but with the deliberate and concentrated urgency of someone who truly comprehends that time is the one precious resource you can never replenish or recover once it's gone. Build your life meticulously, brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day, because no one else in the world will undertake this sacred and personal work on your behalf. This is your fight to win, your potential to fully actualize, and your life to purposefully build. In this video, I will guide you step by step through 7 powerful and timeless Stoic principles that will not only shift your perspective in profound ways but will also compel you into taking real, sustainable actions toward growth and fulfillment. These aren't superficial feel-good platitudes or empty motivational fluff designed to entertain without impact. These are rigorously time-tested strategies for achieving human excellence, strategies that have been forged and proven in the intense crucible of real-life challenges by some of history's most accomplished and resilient individuals. Listen carefully to each one, and then apply them ruthlessly in your daily life. Your existence will never be the same again. Before we dive in, if you are truly serious about transforming your life rather than just being passively entertained by the mere idea of transformation, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and share it with someone in your life who desperately needs to hear this wake-up message. Your active engagement signals to me that you're ready to transition from mere consumption of ideas to their full implementation in your actions. If this resonates deeply with your soul, claim it boldly in the comments section below. No more delay. I build my life now. Number 1. Stop negotiating with your laziness. The first and most crucial step toward building a powerful and meaningful life is one that appears deceptively simple on the surface yet proves profoundly challenging in practice. You must completely stop arguing and debating with your own inherent weaknesses. You must put an end to the exhausting and constant internal negotiations that occur every single day between the person you currently are and the person you deeply know you have the potential to become. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who governed the vast Roman Empire while contending with devastating plagues, brutal wars, and relentless political pressures, captured this struggle in his personal journal when he wrote, "At dawn, when you are unwilling to rise, have this thought ready: I am rising to the work of a human being." Consider for a moment the profound significance of this admission. Here was the most powerful man in the ancient world, someone who could have indulged in every conceivable comfort and luxury without question, and yet he still had to battle that same internal voice that tempts us all toward ease, toward comfort, toward just 5 more minutes of sleep to avoid facing our responsibilities. But what truly made Marcus Aurelius extraordinary and sets him apart as a model was this: every single morning, without fail, he declared war on that seductive voice of comfortable mediocrity. He fully understood that the battle for control over your life is ultimately won or lost in those critical, decisive moments when your discipline comes face to face with your desire for immediate ease and avoidance. This is precisely the mindset you must adopt and embody if you aspire to build something truly meaningful and lasting with your existence. Because nothing erodes and destroys human potential more swiftly and completely than the ingrained habit of negotiating with your own laziness. Take a reflective pause and consider honestly how often you've engaged in these kinds of internal negotiations just over the past month alone. Your alarm clock rings at the exact time you deliberately set it for the night before, and immediately, the bargaining process begins. Just 5 more minutes won't hurt. I'll make up for it by getting up even earlier tomorrow. I didn't sleep well last night, so this time it's justified and different. You had planned and committed to exercising, but you convince yourself that you'll start fresh and renewed on Monday, giving yourself permission to skip today. You had intended to read a book or learn something new to expand your knowledge, but you rationalize that scrolling endlessly on your phone is somehow a valid form of research or a way to stay informed about the world. Each and every time you surrender to the pull of comfort over your prior commitment, something profound and deeply damaging occurs within you. Your self-respect begins to quietly erode away, bit by bit. You start to lose faith in the reliability of your own word, even when that word is a promise made only to yourself. Gradually, you come to view yourself as someone who harbors good intentions but consistently demonstrates poor follow-through, as a person who means well but can't be trusted to actually do what they say they'll do, even in matters concerning their own well-being and growth. The teachings of ancient Stoicism remind us that discipline isn't about inflicting harsh self-punishment or adopting a rigid, joyless approach to life. Rather, it's fundamentally about honor, the deep, intrinsic honor that arises from knowing you showed up fully for yourself, even when every fiber of your being screamed for the easy path of avoidance. It's about cultivating an unshakable trust in yourself, confident that when you make a commitment, whether big or small, you can absolutely be counted on to follow through without exception. The Stoics recognized that laziness manifests on multiple interconnected levels, making it a multifaceted enemy. Physical laziness is the most obvious form. It's the reluctance to move your body, to engage in exercise, or to undertake any form of physical work that requires effort. But there's also mental laziness, which is far more subtle and insidious in its effects. Mental laziness tricks you into believing that merely thinking about problems is equivalent to actually solving them, that endless planning substitutes for decisive execution, or that harboring good intentions alone is a sufficient replacement for taking concrete, tangible actions. Then there's emotional laziness, the tendency to avoid difficult but necessary conversations, to postpone addressing issues in your relationships, or to remain stuck in draining situations rather than doing the hard emotional work required for positive change. And finally, there's spiritual laziness, the failure to regularly examine your deeper values and beliefs, to question whether your daily actions genuinely align with what you claim to hold dear, or to commit to the ongoing inner work of becoming the kind of person you can truly respect and admire. Here's a key insight you must internalize: laziness isn't merely a temporary state of mind or an inherent character flaw that you're doomed to carry forever. It's a mental habit that grows stronger and more entrenched every single time you indulge it, just like any other habit. Through repetition, it becomes increasingly automatic and powerful, influencing your choices without you even noticing. But the beautiful flip side is equally true. Discipline is also a habit that strengthens with each instance where you choose effort over ease, action over avoidance, and discomfort over the lure of immediate gratification. The Stoics held a deep belief in what they termed voluntary discomfort, the deliberate and intentional practice of choosing challenging actions even when far easier alternatives are readily available. They would purposefully wake up early when their bodies craved more sleep, push through exercise when their muscles ached from fatigue, continue working when their minds yearn for rest, and opt for simple, modest foods even when luxurious feasts were at their disposal. This practice wasn't rooted in masochism or a desire for self-punishment. It was a strategic form of preparation for the inevitable challenges and hardships that life throws at us all. When you regularly push through resistance in small, everyday areas, you build the mental muscle and resilience needed to push through much larger resistances when they arise. When you honor your commitments to yourself in minor, seemingly insignificant matters, you develop the character and integrity to honor them in major, life-defining ones. When you repeatedly prove to yourself that you can do what you say you'll do, even when you don't feel like it at all, you become the kind of person who can be entrusted with bigger responsibilities, greater opportunities, and more profound achievements. Now, let's examine what you're truly losing by remaining trapped in these patterns of laziness and negotiation. First and foremost, you're losing time, the one finite resource that, once spent, can never be recovered or replenished, no matter how much you wish otherwise. You're also losing out on valuable opportunities, because while you're busy negotiating with your internal resistance and making excuses, someone else, who may have less natural talent but far more discipline, is taking decisive action and surging ahead. You're losing confidence in yourself, as every time you break a promise to your own self, you reinforce a negative identity as someone who can't be counted on to follow through on commitments. But most importantly of all, you're losing your dreams, not in a dramatic, all-at-once catastrophe, but slowly and gradually through the compound effect of countless small surrenders that accumulate over months and years. Every single day that you delay taking meaningful action, life continues to move forward without pause. The business idea you wanted to start gets launched by someone else with more initiative. The skill you aim to develop gets mastered by another person who committed to consistent practice. The relationship you hope to build or repair gets formed or strengthened by someone else who had the courage to act. Stoicism demands that you master yourself and your habits before life forces you to submit to circumstances beyond your control. The optimal time to defeat laziness isn't when a wave of motivation suddenly strikes you. Motivation is fleeting and unreliable at best. The best time to conquer it is right now, in this very moment, regardless of how you currently feel or what your emotions are telling you. So, how do you systematically eliminate laziness from your life using these proven Stoic principles? First, always expect resistance to arise, and don't be caught off guard when your body and mind crave ease and comfort instead of effort. This resistance is a natural and universal part of the human experience. Even Marcus Aurelius himself felt it daily. The key difference between successful people and those who remain stuck is not the absence of this resistance, but how they respond to it when it appears. Second, create daily routines and structured systems that function independently of your fluctuating emotional state. Whether you feel energetic and motivated or tired and discouraged, inspired or utterly bored, you execute your commitments without question. This approach removes the need to make fresh decisions based on temporary feelings and instead generates automatic momentum that propels your life forward. Third, systematically reduce temptations and distractions in your environment rather than relying solely on raw willpower to resist them, as willpower is a limited resource. If you want to read more consistently, remove your phone from the bedroom to eliminate the temptation of scrolling. If you aim to eat healthier, don't keep junk food stocked in your house where it's easily accessible. If you plan to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before to make starting as frictionless as possible. In essence, design your environment to make good choices easier to follow and bad choices harder to indulge in. Finally, learn to reframe and celebrate the discomfort inherent in effort rather than viewing it as something negative to be endured or avoided. That physical discomfort you feel during exercise is actually your body adapting, growing stronger, and building resilience. That mental discomfort while tackling a challenging learning task is your brain forming new neural pathways and expanding its capabilities. That emotional discomfort during a difficult conversation is you developing greater courage, authenticity, and relational depth. In this way, pain transforms into proof, irrefutable proof that you are actively evolving into someone truly extraordinary. If you're watching this video right now and you recognize your own patterns in this description of negotiating with laziness, begin by forgiving yourself for any past failures or shortcomings. The past is fixed and unchangeable, but the future remains entirely within your sphere of influence and control. From this exact moment forward, draw a clear and unwavering line in the sand. The new version of you no longer entertains negotiations with weakness or excuses. You rise promptly when the alarm rings, regardless of how much sleep you got the night before or how tired you feel. You work diligently even when fatigue sets in, because discipline reliably functions when fleeting motivation fails. You train your body even when you're feeling uninspired or unmotivated, because consistency over time creates genuine capability and strength. You read and learn even when the material feels boring or dry, because knowledge compounds exponentially with persistent effort. And day by day, through these small but powerful acts of self-discipline, you will begin to feel the profound transformation taking place. Your mind will become sharper and more focused, your body stronger and more resilient, your character more reliable and trustworthy, and your overall life will improve exponentially. Not through sheer luck or favorable external circumstances, but through the systematic and intentional application of disciplined choices made repeatedly. The Stoic path is certainly not the easiest one to walk, but it is the only path that reliably leads to genuine greatness, authentic self-respect, and the deep, lasting satisfaction that comes from knowing you have become the fullest expression of your inherent potential. Comfort may seem like a beautiful and alluring prison, but discipline serves as the key to true freedom. The simple yet profound question that will determine the entire trajectory of your life is this: will you choose to use that key? Own your growth and declare it by typing this affirmation below: I refuse to negotiate with laziness. Music. Number 2. Build ruthless clarity about your life. The second fundamental principle for constructing an extraordinary life directly addresses one of the most common yet utterly devastating problems that plagues modern society today: the widespread epidemic of unclear and directionless living. Countless people find themselves perpetually stuck in place, feeling frustrated, unfulfilled, and dissatisfied, not because they lack intelligence, resources, or even opportunities, but because they are missing something far more basic and essential: crystal clear clarity about what they are actually trying to build and achieve with their limited time on this earth. They drift aimlessly through their days like ships without anchors or rudders, being tossed about by whatever winds or currents happen to blow their way at any given moment. They wake up each morning and react impulsively to whatever feels urgent in the immediate term, rather than proactively pursuing what is truly important and aligned with their long-term vision. They make decisions based on fleeting emotions or external pressures rather than a well-defined personal direction. They say yes to opportunities that don't resonate with their core values and no to challenges that could catalyze profound transformation in their lives. Seneca, who served as a trusted advisor to emperors while amassing vast wealth and developing deep philosophical wisdom, understood this challenge on an intimate level when he wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." This statement isn't just a poetic metaphor, it's a practical and urgent warning about the futility of taking action without a clear sense of direction. When you lack precise clarity about your ultimate destination, even the most powerful winds or opportunities that could propel you forward become meaningless or even counterproductive. Even life-changing prospects that come your way will feel overwhelming, irrelevant, or confusing because you have no established framework for evaluating their true significance or fit. To genuinely start building your life in a purposeful way rather than just managing or reacting to your circumstances, you must become brutally and uncompromisingly clear about what exactly you are building. You can no longer afford to wake up each day hoping that something magical or serendipitous will happen to you without your input. You cannot keep waiting for external circumstances or other people to provide the direction that only you can determine for yourself. You cannot outsource the sacred responsibility of designing your own life to society, to chance, to fate, or to anyone else. At its core, Stoicism is all about intentional living, living with conscious purpose and deliberate choice rather than unconscious reaction or default habits. This level of intentionality requires you to courageously engage with some of the most challenging and introspective questions that a human being can possibly ask themselves. What kind of person do I truly want to become over the next 5 years, and why does that matter to me? What specific skills do I want to master, and what is the deeper purpose behind acquiring them? What level of physical health, mental clarity, financial stability, and character strength do I aspire to possess, and how will that shape my daily life? What particular problems in the world do I feel called to solve or contribute to addressing? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind for future generations or those I care about? But here's where most people make a critical and often fatal error in this process. They approach these profound questions in a casual, superficial manner, providing vague and socially acceptable answers that sound nice on the surface but offer no real, actionable guidance for making daily decisions. They claim they want to be successful without ever defining what success personally means to them in concrete terms. They say they want to be happy without exploring what activities or pursuits actually bring them lasting fulfillment rather than temporary pleasure. They express a desire to make a difference without identifying specific problems they feel uniquely passionate about or equipped to solve. Vagueness, in all its forms, is the sworn enemy of genuine achievement. Precision, on the other hand, serves as the solid foundation upon which true power and progress are built. When Marcus Aurelius penned his famous Meditations, he wasn't crafting elegant philosophical statements for public consumption or acclaim. He was forcing himself to think with razor-sharp clarity about his personal values, his responsibilities as a leader and human, and his daily priorities. He understood that a leader who cannot think clearly and decisively about his own life cannot possibly lead others effectively or wisely. Achieving true clarity demands that you sit down with yourself in a quiet space, free from distractions, free from other people's opinions and expectations, free from the constant noise of social media or daily obligations that usually drown out your authentic inner voice, and answer these genuinely difficult questions with honesty and depth. What unique contribution do you want to make to the world that only you, with your specific experiences and talents, can provide? What pain or problem in society do you feel uniquely equipped or motivated to address and alleviate? What kind of lifestyle are you truly willing to sacrifice for, not just daydream about in idle moments? Because here's what separates genuine clarity from mere wishful thinking or fantasy. Clarity isn't solely about articulating your dreams and aspirations, it's equally about acknowledging and embracing the necessary sacrifices and trade-offs that come with them. If you want to build something truly extraordinary, you must also be prepared to give up everything that weakens you, distracts you, or pulls you away from that building process. That might mean distancing yourself from friends who consistently drain your energy or hold you back. It might involve saying no to social activities or invitations that don't align with your core priorities. It might require eliminating long-standing habits that consume your precious time without contributing in any way to your personal growth or goals. Once you achieve this level of genuine, hard-won clarity about your direction and purpose, your life becomes dramatically simpler and more empowered, not necessarily easier, as clarity doesn't magically eliminate challenges or obstacles, but simpler in the sense that you now possess clear, objective criteria for making decisions. Does this opportunity or choice move me closer to the person I want to become, or does it pull me further away? Does this relationship energize and support me, or does it drain and deplete me? Does this activity or pursuit contribute meaningfully to my long-term vision, or does it merely consume my short-term attention without lasting benefit? When you know exactly where you're headed, what doesn't align with that destination naturally falls away or gets eliminated. You stop saying yes to things out of guilt, boredom, or social pressure from others. You start saying no to merely good opportunities so that you can say yes to the truly great ones that advance your path. You begin to internalize what Seneca meant when he taught that true wealth consists not in accumulating many possessions or distractions, but in having few wants that are perfectly aligned with your deepest values and principles. Even Marcus Aurelius, despite having unlimited access to power, luxury, and indulgence as emperor, constantly reminded himself in his writings, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't morbid or negative thinking. It was clarity-driven thinking at its finest. When you truly internalize the inescapable reality that your time on earth is limited and its end is uncertain, you stop wasting it on activities, relationships, or pursuits that don't contribute to your highest good or purpose. That stark reminder of mortality propels you toward laser-focused clarity and action. If death is guaranteed but its timing is unknown, then spending your precious, limited days in confusion, distraction, or purposeless activity becomes a profound dishonor to the gift of life itself. When you are crystal clear about your values, direction, and priorities, you move through the world with intention rather than drifting aimlessly with the circumstances around you. You speak with purpose and conviction rather than just making noise or filling silence. You wake up each morning with a compelling and motivating reason to engage fully with the day ahead, rather than going through the motions. The practical application of this principle requires you to create what I refer to as a personal manifesto, a written document that captures and articulates your core values, your long-term vision for your life, and your absolute non-negotiables. Write down specifically and in detail who you must become in order to achieve the life you truly desire, not the life that others expect you to want or that society pressures you toward. Define your absolute non-negotiables, the elements of your life that you refuse to compromise on, no matter the external pressures or conveniences tempting you otherwise. Perhaps your non-negotiables include a sacred morning routine that sets a positive tone for your entire day, or an unwavering commitment to physical fitness as the foundational pillar for your mental and emotional strength. They might involve your dedication to continuous learning and skill development to keep growing, or your insistence on practicing financial discipline and investing consistently in your future self. The specific content of these non-negotiables matters less than the clarity with which you define them and the commitment with which you protect and uphold them. Once you've built that level of clarity, your next vital responsibility is to protect it fiercely and vigilantly, because the world around you will constantly attempt to distract you with noise, entertainment, drama, gossip, and other people's so-called emergencies that demand your attention. Social media algorithms are specifically engineered to fragment and scatter your focus, pulling you in multiple directions. News cycles are designed to create artificial urgency around events you have no control over, stirring unnecessary anxiety. Consumer culture thrives and profits from keeping you confused about what you actually need versus what you think you want in the moment. But you are not like most people who fall prey to these traps. You are not casual or complacent about your existence. You are becoming a stoic architect of your own destiny, designing and building with intention. You must guard your focus and clarity like a seasoned warrior guards his most precious weapon in battle. When external forces try to pull you off course or derail your path, your hard-earned clarity becomes your reliable compass, always pointing you back toward what truly matters and deserves your energy. Clarity, when properly developed through reflection and then fiercely protected through discipline, becomes a strategic weapon in your arsenal. With it, you can cut through confusion, make decisions quickly and confidently, and navigate life's complexities with ease. Without it, you risk drowning in the chaos of endless options, conflicting demands, and other people's opinions that don't serve you. In a world that actively profits from your distraction, confusion, and uncertainty, maintaining crystal clear focus on your own chosen path becomes not just a personal advantage, but a bold act of rebellion against the forces that seek to keep you small, uncertain, and easily manipulated. When Epictetus was asked why he trained so rigorously and consistently in philosophical thinking and self-mastery, he responded with unwavering conviction, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You become the true master of your life in the precise moment when you get absolutely clear about the life you are determined to build, regardless of what anyone else thinks, says, or expects about your choices. So, look into your future with sharp, uncompromising eyes that see beyond the immediate. Decide with precision and detail who you want to become. Identify with brutal honesty what you need to eliminate from your current life to make room for growth. Then, move forward with unshakable clarity about your direction and purpose, even if that means walking alone for a time, even if it means disappointing people who prefer you to remain small and uncertain, even if it means making choices that others cannot or will not understand. Your life is not a democracy where every decision requires consensus or approval from the crowd. You don't need permission or validation to pursue your highest vision of what is possible for you. You just need clarity to guide you, commitment to fuel you, and the courage to act on both without hesitation. Number 3, stop waiting for motivation, create momentum yourself. The third transformative principle that clearly separates those who actually build meaningful and impactful lives from those who merely dream about them without ever acting addresses one of the most pervasive and destructive myths perpetuated in modern self-development culture. It's the misguided belief that success and achievement belong only to those fortunate few who wake up each day overflowing with natural motivation, inspiration, and enthusiasm. This notion isn't just incorrect, it's dangerously misleading, as it keeps millions of people trapped in endless cycles of waiting, hoping, and perpetual preparation while their lives slip away unused and unfulfilled. The truth that high achievers understand intuitively but rarely articulate openly is this: genuine success is not powered by constant waves of inspiration or innate motivation that some people supposedly have and others don't. Instead, it is powered by systematically created and carefully maintained momentum that carries you forward. The ancient Stoic philosopher Cleanthes, who worked grueling night shifts as a boxer and day laborer to fund his philosophical education and pursuits, embodied and taught this principle when he advised, when the effort required to lift a heavy stone is too great, wedge another beneath and continue. This isn't merely practical advice for moving physical stones, it's a profound metaphor for the nature of human achievement and progress. When your motivation inevitably fails, when inspiration fades away, when your emotional energy runs low or depletes entirely, you don't stop or give up. Instead, you find leverage points, you create supportive systems, and you build momentum that propels you forward regardless of how you happen to feel in the moment. The fundamental error that most people make, and the one that guarantees a life of mediocrity, is waiting to feel like doing something before actually taking action on it. This passive approach is doomed to failure because human feelings are inherently unreliable and unpredictable, fluctuating wildly based on factors like how much sleep you got, the weather outside, levels of stress, blood sugar fluctuations, recent social interactions, current news cycles, and countless other variables that are completely outside your direct control. If you allow your transient emotions to dictate and determine your actions, your life will inevitably resemble an emotional roller coaster. Brief periods of intense activity and progress followed by long crashes of inactivity and stagnation, bursts of forward movement followed by extended stretches of no advancement at all. The ancient Stoics operated from a radically different and far more effective paradigm. They believed firmly that action should always take precedence over emotion, and that your behavior should drive and shape your feelings rather than the other way around. They understood that you don't wait until you feel brave before acting courageously, you act courageously in the face of fear until courage becomes your natural and habitual response. Similarly, you don't wait to feel disciplined before behaving with discipline, you behave with discipline consistently until it becomes your automatic mode of operation and way of being. This core principle extends to every area of meaningful achievement and personal development in life. You will not always feel eager or excited to read that book that could fundamentally transform your understanding of the world or yourself. You will not always feel pumped up and motivated to exercise your body when it's feeling tired, sore, or resistant. You will not always feel inspired or creative when it's time to work on developing your craft, honing your skills, or advancing your projects. You will not always have the emotional energy or willpower to resist temptations that you know deep down don't serve your long-term interests or goals. But these very moments, when you don't feel like taking positive, productive action, are precisely when such action matters the most and has the greatest impact. Every single positive action you take while feeling uninspired, while being tired, while experiencing discouragement, serves as a direct strike against your old, limiting identity and a solid building block for your new, empowered one. It's tangible proof to yourself that you are evolving into someone who can be counted on to follow through, no matter the circumstances or internal state. It's evidence that your commitment to your goals runs deeper than your momentary desire for comfort or ease. The Stoics wisely understood that you don't need to begin with massive, overwhelming, life-changing actions that require heroic effort. In fact, attempting to do too much too quickly often leads to burnout, frustration, and eventual abandonment of your goals altogether. A truly Stoic life is built not through occasional bursts of intense, all-out effort, but through consistent, sustainable movement in the right direction over extended periods of time, allowing compound effects to work their magic. Want to become physically strong, healthy, and resilient? Start with just 10 minutes of intentional movement every single morning, without exception, regardless of how you feel. Not 2 hours at the gym only when you're feeling highly motivated, but 10 consistent minutes that you can maintain even on your absolute worst days when energy is low. Want to master a valuable skill that could open new doors? Commit to just 30 minutes of focused, deliberate practice each day, even when you're exhausted or uninspired to do so. Want to build financial strength and security for your future? Dedicate just 15 minutes each day to studying your finances, exploring investment options, or learning income-generating skills, instead of mindlessly scrolling on your phone or engaging in other distractions. These actions may seem almost trivially small at first glance, but that's precisely where their immense power lies. Small actions that are maintained with unwavering consistency generate what mathematicians describe as compound effects, results that grow exponentially over time rather than linearly, leading to outsized outcomes. And perhaps even more importantly, these small, consistent actions generate psychological momentum that builds upon itself. Once momentum begins to build and accumulate, motivation naturally follows as a byproduct, rather than needing to precede the action as most people mistakenly expect. This inverted relationship between action and motivation is crucial to grasp because it's the complete reverse of what the majority of people anticipate and wait for. They sit around waiting for motivation to arrive and drive them to action, when in reality, it's action itself that creates and sustains motivation over the long term. When you take positive steps forward, even if they're small and incremental, you begin to see yourself differently, as someone who actively takes positive steps forward, no matter what. This subtle but powerful identity shift then makes future positive actions more likely, easier to initiate, and simpler to maintain. Always remember that emotion is an inherently unreliable foundation upon which to build sustained action or progress. Some days, you'll feel powerful, energetic, and fully capable of conquering any challenge the world throws at you. On other days, you'll feel empty, drained, discouraged, or completely overwhelmed by even small tasks. If you allow these natural emotional fluctuations to determine whether or not you take positive action toward your goals, your progress will be erratic at best and entirely non-existent at worst. The Stoics placed great emphasis on what they called steadiness, the cultivated ability to maintain consistent forward movement and effort regardless of internal emotional states or external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, who had to uphold his philosophical practice and leadership through brutal wars, devastating plagues, personal family tragedies, and enormous political pressures, wrote extensively about the supreme importance of showing up consistently rather than dramatically or sporadically. Discipline, from a Stoic perspective, isn't measured by how intensely you can perform when you happen to feel like it or when conditions are ideal. It's measured by how consistently you can show up and put in the work when you don't feel like it at all, when conditions are far from perfect. Just as flowing water carves deep channels through solid stone not through brute force or sudden power, but through patient persistence over time, your disciplined daily actions will carve out a new and better future for you through unwavering consistency rather than occasional intensity. This principle has profound and far-reaching implications for how you approach personal change and growth. You may never feel completely ready or prepared to start that business, write that book, have that difficult but crucial conversation, or make that significant life change you've been contemplating. Most people use this persistent feeling of not being ready as a convenient justification for further delay and inaction. But the Stoics remind us repeatedly that the only perfect time for taking positive action is now, in this present moment, with whatever resources, knowledge, and capabilities you currently possess. Life is unpredictably short and can be mercilessly unforgiving to those who wait endlessly for ideal conditions that may never arrive. While you're busy over-researching, over-planning, and waiting to feel fully ready, opportunities pass you by, time expires without return, and other people, who may have less knowledge or talent but far more willingness to act, move ahead and claim what could have been yours. Stop overthinking your decisions to the point of paralysis and over-planning your actions without ever executing. Start acting decisively with the information and tools you have right now, then adjust your approach based on the real-world feedback you receive, trusting that the momentum you build will create the clarity and confidence you're currently waiting for. Mahatma Gandhi, whose philosophy was deeply influenced by Stoic ideals of discipline and action, observed wisely that action expresses priorities. Your daily actions, or lack thereof, reveal what you actually value in life, not your words, not your stated intentions, not your lofty goals written down but never pursued. If you truly value your future self, your untapped potential, and your deepest dreams, then prove it through your willingness to take action even when you don't feel like it, even when it's uncomfortable. If you truly believe that you're capable of achieving more than your current circumstances suggest, demonstrate that belief through daily choices that reflect someone already living at that higher level of potential. To make this practical, set what I call daily minimums, the smallest possible versions of your important activities that you can realistically maintain even on your most challenging or chaotic days. These minimums act as anchors that keep you moving forward steadily when life gets unpredictable, when motivation disappears entirely, or when circumstances become difficult and overwhelming. Your daily minimum might be something as simple as 10 push-ups when you can't make it to the gym for a full workout, or reading just one page of a book when you can't focus for longer periods, or practicing 5 minutes of meditation when finding more time seems impossible. The primary goal of these minimums isn't to accomplish everything through tiny actions alone, it's to maintain your momentum and preserve consistency in your identity as someone who follows through. When you honor your daily minimums without fail, you prove to yourself repeatedly that you are a person who keeps commitments, no matter what. This repeated proof builds a strong psychological foundation that enables you to take on larger commitments and achieve bigger actions over time. Always move forward regardless of your current emotional state. Let your actions carry you when your feelings fail or falter. Trust that consistent movement in the right direction will eventually generate the enthusiasm, energy, and confidence that you're currently sitting around waiting for. One day in the future, people will look at your life and accomplishments and comment on how incredibly motivated you always seem to be. But you'll smile knowingly, understanding the deeper truth: it wasn't some magical, constant motivation that created your success. It was momentum, systematically built and carefully maintained, one small action at a time, day after day. Number 4, surround yourself with builders, not dreamers. The fourth critical principle for building an extraordinary life directly addresses one of the most underestimated yet incredibly powerful forces that shapes your destiny and outcomes: the profound and often subtle impact of your social environment and the people you choose to surround yourself with. The path to constructing a meaningful, successful, and fulfilling life is not meant to be walked in isolation, but neither is it meant to be walked with just anyone who happens to be around. You must become ruthlessly selective and discerning about the people you allow into your inner circle, because your environment doesn't just influence your choices and behaviors in minor ways, it literally shapes who you become at the deepest levels of your character and identity. Take a close and honest look at the 5 people you spend the most time with right now, whether in person or virtually. Do they actively build tangible value in their own lives through consistent action? Or do they merely dream about building, talking endlessly without ever following through? Do their daily actions and habits reflect a serious, unwavering commitment to personal growth and improvement? Or do they engage in endless planning sessions that never lead to execution, unconsciously encouraging you to remain at their level of comfort and mediocrity rather than pushing you higher? The ancient Stoics understood something fundamental about human nature that modern psychology has now confirmed through extensive research and studies: you become remarkably similar to the people you consistently spend time with, adopting their habits, mindsets, and standards over time. Epictetus, who remarkably transformed himself from a literal slave into one of history's most influential and respected teachers, warned his students explicitly: avoid fraternizing with negative people, for they increase your likelihood of sinking to their level. This advice isn't about being judgmental, elitist, or superior to others. It's about recognizing a basic truth about human psychology and the power of social influence. Your social circle is either actively watering the seeds of your growth and reinforcing your highest aspirations, or it's slowly poisoning your potential by normalizing mediocrity and complacency. There is no neutral ground in this dynamic. Every interaction either lifts you up or pulls you down. Every conversation you have either elevates your thinking, expands your perspective, and motivates you, or it diminishes your ambition, clouds your judgment, and erodes your resolve. Every social interaction either strengthens your commitment to excellence and pushes you beyond your comfort zone, or it weakens your drive by making excuses and settling feel acceptable. Consider the people in your life who claim they want success, personal improvement, or positive change. Now, shift your focus from listening to their stated intentions or words and instead observe their actual daily behaviors and choices. Do they wake up early to work diligently on their goals, or do they sleep in late and offer a litany of excuses for why today isn't the right day? Do they invest their free time in learning new things, creating value, or building skills, or do they spend their evenings gossiping about others, consuming mindless entertainment, or engaging in activities that contribute absolutely nothing to their proclaimed objectives? Many people say they crave discipline and structure, but they spend their social time with individuals who celebrate quitting when things get difficult or uncomfortable. They claim they want financial success and independence, but they surround themselves with people who harbor negative attitudes toward money, achievement, and those who succeed. They express a desire for personal growth, but they maintain friendships built on shared complaints, victimhood, and negativity rather than on shared aspirations, support, and mutual elevation. If you continue to keep such people close in your life, you will unconsciously begin to accept their lower standards as normal and reasonable for yourself. Soon, being chronically late becomes understandable because everyone in your circle is frequently late. Making excuses for lack of progress becomes realistic because everyone around you has a ready story for why they didn't follow through. Quitting on dreams becomes framed as mature or knowing your limits because everyone has a tale of why they gave up on theirs years ago. Without even realizing it's happening, your internal fire, the drive and passion for a better life, begins to dim and fade. Not because you've lost your inherent desire for improvement, but because you're surrounded by people who never had that fire to begin with, or who extinguished theirs long ago and now unconsciously work to extinguish yours as well through their influence. Mediocrity loves company, and misery is always subtly recruiting new members to its ranks. To truly build your life according to your highest vision and potential, you must strategically and systematically surround yourself with what I call builders, people who consistently take concrete action toward meaningful goals and outcomes. These are the individuals who wake up early not because they are forced by external obligations, but because they choose to in order to maximize their day and make the most of their time. They exercise regularly not because it's always easy or enjoyable, but because they understand the deep connection between physical discipline and mental strength, resilience, and overall well-being. They invest time in learning and skill development not because it's entertaining or trendy, but because they're committed to increasing their value, capability, and impact over time. Builders talk less about what they're going to do someday and spend more time actually doing it in the present. They discuss practical strategies, share useful resources, and offer tangible help rather than just emotional support that keeps you comfortable in stagnation. They push forward with quiet intensity and focus, prioritizing results and progress over seeking recognition or applause. Most importantly, being around such people naturally forces you to raise your own standards and expectations, because their consistent excellence makes your excuses feel shameful and your untapped potential feel urgent and demanding of action. This is why Marcus Aurelius, despite being surrounded by courtiers and advisors who would agree with anything he said to curry favor, constantly advised himself in his writings to live as on a mountain, elevated above the noise of popular opinion and mass consensus, focused intently on character development rather than seeking social approval, committed to personal growth rather than settling for comfort or status quo. He understood that even as the most powerful person in his world, he needed to maintain psychological distance from people who might lower his standards, distract him from his path, or tempt him away from his philosophical development. The practical application of this principle requires you to make some potentially difficult and uncomfortable decisions about your current relationships and social circles. You need to gradually distance yourself from people who drain your energy, discourage your ambitions, or normalize behaviors that keep you from reaching your full potential. This doesn't mean being cruel, rude, or making dramatic announcements about ending friendships overnight. It simply means slowly but intentionally reducing the time and emotional energy you invest in relationships that no longer support or align with your highest good. Simultaneously, you need to begin actively gravitating toward people, places, and environments where serious, committed individuals gather and thrive. Attend events focused on personal development or professional growth. Join organizations or communities centered on learning, building, or achievement in areas that interest you. Spend your time in libraries for quiet study, gyms for physical discipline, co-working spaces for productive collaboration, workshops for skill building, or any other environment where people are actively working on improving themselves rather than just talking about improvement in abstract terms. Some of you may be hesitating right now because you're afraid that outgrowing your current social circle will leave you feeling isolated or alone for a period. Let me be direct and clear on this. Temporary solitude is infinitely better and more empowering than permanent mediocrity or stagnation. The Stoics not only embraced periods of solitude as part of their practice, they considered it essential training for developing mental strength, resilience, and character. In solitude, you confront your weaknesses head-on without the distractions or influences of social dynamics. You develop your own thoughts and opinions without being swayed by others' views. You build the inner strength and self-reliance that makes you worthy of attracting other strong, like-minded people into your life. Remember, you cannot find or attract high-caliber people by clinging to low-caliber habits or mindsets. You cannot draw in true builders while you're still operating like a dreamer who talks big but acts small. The solution isn't to search desperately or frantically for better people to spend time with. The solution is to first become the type of person that better people naturally want to be around and connect with. Start building your own life with such consistency, discipline, and excellence that other builders notice your commitment, energy, and results, and are drawn to you organically. Work on your physical fitness, mental development, financial discipline, and skill acquisition with such seriousness and dedication that people who are also serious about these areas are naturally attracted to your vibe and focus. Always remember this fundamental truth: genuine builders build relentlessly, regardless of who's watching, applauding, or validating them. They don't need constant encouragement, praise, or social validation to maintain their commitment to excellence. They derive it from within. If you want to transform your life and attract other people who are equally committed to transformation and growth, you must first become someone who builds consistently and excellently, whether anyone notices or not, whether you receive recognition or not. The quality of your life will ultimately be determined not just by your own actions, but by the quality of the people you choose to walk alongside on your journey. Choose people who challenge you to grow, expand, and improve rather than those who comfort you in staying the same or small. Choose people whose actions inspire and motivate you rather than those whose words merely entertain or distract you. Choose people who are actively building something meaningful with their lives rather than those who are just passing time, waiting for life to happen to them until they die without having truly lived. Number 5. Stop consuming to escape, start learning to evolve. The fifth transformative principle addresses what may well be the most widespread and destructive habit embedded in modern society: the tendency toward mindless consumption as a form of emotional escape or avoidance. We live in an unprecedented era of abundant access to information, entertainment, and various forms of distraction at our fingertips. Yet, tragically, most people use this access not to grow, learn, or evolve as individuals, but to numb themselves and avoid the discomfort of confronting their own potential, taking responsibility for their lives, and doing the hard work of building something worthwhile. Take an honest look at your own patterns and habits. When you find yourself scrolling through social media for hours on end, binge-watching entire seasons of television shows in one sitting, eating emotionally well beyond physical hunger to soothe feelings, or consuming endless streams of news and content, ask yourself, are you genuinely growing as a person through this, expanding your knowledge or skills? Or are you running away from the psychological discomfort that naturally arises when you engage in building something meaningful with your existence, facing your fears, or pushing your limits? The ancient Stoics, who lived in a world with far fewer distractions than ours but faced the same human tendencies toward avoidance and escapism, understood that consuming without clear intention or purpose is a subtle but potent form of self-destruction. Seneca, who had access to all the luxuries, entertainments, and indulgences that Roman wealth and status could provide, wrote insightfully, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He recognized that much of our consumption, whether of food, information, or entertainment, feeds our imagination in negative ways, amplifying our fears, anxieties, and distractions rather than contributing to our wisdom, inner strength, or practical capabilities in the real world. Most modern consumption is cleverly designed to keep you in a state of comfortable numbness, gently avoiding the psychological discomfort that actually signals opportunities for growth, change, and improvement. Every hour you spend consuming content that doesn't challenge your thinking, educate you on valuable topics, or inspire you to take positive action is an hour stolen from the active construction and development of your future self. Let's think about this in mathematical terms to illustrate the impact. If you currently spend just 2 hours per day engaged in mindless consumption, scrolling aimlessly, watching for emotional regulation, eating out of boredom or stress, or consuming for escape rather than genuine value, that adds up to 14 hours per week, roughly 60 hours per month, and over 700 hours per year. Now, imagine redirecting even half of that wasted time toward activities that build you up, reading philosophy to deepen your wisdom, learning practical skills that increase your capabilities, exercising your body to enhance health, studying financial literacy to build wealth, practicing a craft to hone expertise, or developing any other ability that compounds positively over time. In just 1 year, with no other major changes to your lifestyle, you would invest over 350 hours in your own personal development. That's equivalent to almost 9 full-time work weeks dedicated entirely to becoming more capable, knowledgeable, valuable, and resilient as a human being. Over a decade, this shift would represent nearly 4,000 hours of deliberate growth, enough time and effort to achieve genuine mastery in multiple areas of life and transform your trajectory completely. The Stoics believed passionately that life should be lived deliberately and intentionally, with every choice and action contributing to your development as a fully realized human being. This doesn't mean you must never relax, unwind, or enjoy simple pleasures in life. It means that your relaxation should be earned through prior productive effort, and that your consumption should always serve a clear, positive purpose rather than merely filling empty time or avoiding discomfort. Marcus Aurelius, who as emperor could have indulged in any form of entertainment or luxury imaginable without limit, instead wrote in his personal journal, "You become what you give your attention to." This principle is even more crucial and relevant today than it was in ancient Rome, given the sheer volume of distractions vying for our focus. If you consistently give your attention to chaos, drama, negativity, or meaningless stimulation, you will inevitably become more chaotic, dramatic, negative, and addicted to constant stimulation in your own life. Conversely, if you consistently direct your attention toward wisdom, personal growth, health, and meaningful challenges that stretch you, you will become wiser, continually growing, healthier, and increasingly comfortable with embracing meaningful difficulty as part of the process. The shift from consumptive escape to evolutionary learning begins with an honest and thorough self-assessment. For 1 full week, track meticulously how you spend your discretionary time, the hours when you're not sleeping, working at your job, or handling basic life maintenance tasks like eating or commuting. How much of this precious time genuinely contributes to your long-term growth, skills, or well-being versus how much is spent on short-term emotional management, distraction, or avoidance? Then, begin systematically replacing your consumptive habits with learning-oriented ones. Instead of automatically reaching for your phone when you feel bored, restless, or anxious, reach for a book that challenges your current thinking and expands your worldview. Instead of watching random videos or scrolling through social media feeds, choose educational content that teaches you practical, applicable skills you can use immediately. Instead of consuming news that makes you feel superficially informed but ultimately powerless and anxious, study subjects that directly increase your actual capability, influence, and agency in the world. This transformation doesn't require dramatic, overnight lifestyle overhauls that are unsustainable. Start small by replacing just 30 minutes of daily mindless consumption with 30 minutes of intentional learning each day. Read books that deepen your understanding of psychology, philosophy, business, health, or any field that genuinely interests you and aligns with your goals. Listen to podcasts or lectures that challenge your assumptions, introduce new ideas, and provoke thoughtful reflection. Watch videos or tutorials that teach you hands-on skills rather than ones that simply entertain or pass the time without adding value. But here's the crucial distinction that elevates this from mere consumption to true evolution. Don't just passively consume information, actively apply it in your life. Knowledge only transforms into wisdom when it's tested through real-world practice and fully integrated into your daily behaviors and decisions. If you read about fitness principles, then go out and exercise to implement them. If you study communication techniques, practice them in your actual relationships and conversations. If you learn about financial literacy, immediately implement better money management strategies in your budget or investments. The ultimate and most profound transformation occurs when consuming becomes a strategic, purposeful activity rather than an automatic escape mechanism. When your brain begins to crave knowledge, growth, and challenge more than it craves distraction, comfort, or numbness, you've successfully made the shift from being a passive consumer of life to an active builder of your own development, from a victim of circumstances to the architect of your growth and destiny. Marcus Aurelius captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "Bear in mind that the measure of a man is the worth of the things he cares about." What you choose to consume, whether content, food, or experiences, reveals what you actually care about in life, regardless of what you say your priorities are or what goals you claim to have. If your consumption patterns reflect someone who cares more about immediate comfort than long-term growth, more about entertainment than education, more about distraction than deliberate development, then those are your true priorities, and your life will reflect them accordingly in its outcomes. Make a conscious and committed decision today to care more about your personal evolution than your momentary entertainment. Choose growth over distraction repeatedly, day after day, until it becomes your natural preference and default mode. Invest your attention, the most precious resource you have, in content and activities that make you more capable, resilient, and wise rather than content that simply makes time pass more pleasantly without leaving a positive mark. Your future self, the person you could become through disciplined, intentional development, is depending entirely on the choices you make right now about how to use and direct your attention. Drop this powerful affirmation in the comments to claim it. I consume wisdom, not distractions. Number 6. Master boredom. That's where greatness is built. The sixth principle for building an extraordinary life addresses one of the most overlooked yet absolutely critical factors that separate those who achieve lasting excellence and mastery from those who remain perpetually average or unremarkable. It's the ability not just to tolerate boredom but to actually master it and harness its power. Most people never build anything truly significant or impactful in their lives, not because they lack intelligence, resources, or opportunities, but because they cannot handle one fundamental requirement of all meaningful achievement: the extended periods of unglamorous, repetitive, and seemingly boring work that excellence inevitably demands. In our hyper-stimulated, instant gratification culture, boredom has been framed as something to be avoided at all costs, an enemy to flee from. The moment people feel even slightly understimulated or disengaged, they reflexively reach for their phones, turn on some form of entertainment, seek out social interactions, or find any other distraction that provides immediate novelty or stimulation. This creates a psychological dependency on constant excitement and variety that makes sustained focus on long-term goals nearly impossible to maintain. Marcus Aurelius, who had access to all the stimulation, entertainment, and diversions that the vast Roman Empire could offer, instead chose to spend his time in deep philosophical reflection and dedicated character development. He reminded himself daily in his writings, "It is not death a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Yet, beginning to truly live in the deepest, most authentic sense often looks remarkably boring and ordinary to outside observers. It involves early mornings spent in solitary reflection or planning, hours upon hours of repeated practice on fundamental skills until they become second nature, long periods of quiet, uninterrupted focus on important but unexciting work, and predictable routines maintained with discipline over years. This is where genuine greatness quietly grows and compounds, not in flashy moments of inspiration or excitement that make for good stories, but in the still, unseen, slow accumulation of expertise, skill, and character that comes from doing what needs to be done consistently, even when nobody is watching and when the activity itself doesn't feel particularly thrilling or novel. Look closely at any person you genuinely admire for their achievements, skills, or character, whether it's an athlete, artist, entrepreneur, or thinker. Their daily reality, when stripped of social media highlights, public recognition, or glamorous portrayals, is largely structured, disciplined, and repetitive in nature. They don't chase constant excitement, variety, or novelty to keep things interesting. They don't need every activity or task to feel stimulating, entertaining, or fun in the moment. They understand something profound that the majority of people never learn or accept: what feels boring, routine, or monotonous today will compound over time into capabilities and results so extraordinary that others will eventually attribute them to destiny, natural talent, or luck. The modern world has cultivated an entire population that is psychologically addicted to stimulation and novelty, making sustained focus on any single activity feel uncomfortable or intolerable after just a few minutes. This addiction leads to what researchers term continuous partial attention, a fragmented state where you're always somewhat distracted, always scanning for the next source of stimulation, and never fully present or engaged with whatever you're currently doing. This stimulation addiction is devastating to your potential because mastery in any field, be it professional, artistic, or personal, requires what psychologists call deliberate practice, focused, repetitive work on specific skills over extended periods, often pushing through plateaus where progress feels slow or invisible. But here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about boredom: it's not your enemy to be feared or fled from, it's your test and ally. Boredom is life's way of asking whether you possess the psychological strength and maturity to do what needs to be done, even when it no longer provides immediate gratification, excitement, or novelty. It's testing whether your commitment to your goals and values runs deeper than your need for constant entertainment or stimulation. The ability to continue working productively without relying on constant excitement or external rewards is what separates those who achieve true mastery from those who remain eternal dilettantes, forever jumping from one interest to another without ever going deep enough to excel. When you can persist in practicing, learning, building, or improving even when the activity feels routine, unstimulating, or repetitive, you unlock what may be the most powerful force in human achievement: sustained, focused effort compounded over time. The ancient Stoics not only understood this principle intellectually, they deliberately cultivated the ability to find meaning, purpose, and even satisfaction in what others might dismiss as boring or mundane activities. They practiced what they called preferred indifference, learning to value activities based on their contribution to character development, virtue, and long-term flourishing rather than on their immediate entertainment value or emotional appeal. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about finding deep purpose in routine duties, everyday responsibilities, and repetitive tasks that form the fabric of daily life. He understood that a person's true character is revealed not in rare moments of crisis, inspiration, or high drama, but in how they handle the mundane, ordinary requirements of existence with grace and commitment. Do you approach boring but important tasks with resentment, resistance, or avoidance? Or do you see them as valuable opportunities to build discipline, demonstrate commitment to your values, and strengthen your resolve? The practical mastery of boredom begins with fundamentally changing your relationship with stimulation itself. Instead of expecting or demanding that every moment of your life feel stimulating, exciting, or novel, begin to appreciate and embrace the calm, steady focus that comes from sustained attention on meaningful activities. Instead of judging tasks or activities based solely on how entertaining or fun they are in the short term, evaluate them based on how much they contribute to your long-term development, goals, and well-being. First, stop expecting every single moment or activity in your life to feel inherently stimulating or exciting. Understand that the feeling of boredom often indicates that you're engaging with something long enough and consistently enough for it to actually matter and produce results. If you're constantly seeking out new activities or switching because your current ones feel boring, you may be avoiding the depth and commitment required to create real capability and mastery. Second, design daily routines that you follow faithfully, regardless of how stimulating or novel they feel in the moment. Your morning routine, exercise regimen, learning schedule, and work habits should operate independently of your emotional state or desire for variety. The goal is to make them automatic, reliable, and ingrained. Third, learn to track and measure your progress objectively rather than focusing on your entertainment level or emotional enjoyment. When you can see clear, measurable improvement in your skills, knowledge, physical capability, or character over time, the lack of moment-to-moment excitement becomes irrelevant. You're motivated by visible growth and results rather than fleeting stimulation. Fourth, practice what I call deep presence during routine or seemingly boring activities. Instead of trying to make these tasks more exciting by multitasking or adding distractions, bring your full, undivided attention to them. When you wash the dishes, be fully present with the task of washing dishes, feel the water, notice the sensations. When you exercise, be completely immersed in the physical movements and feelings in your body. When you read or study, engage deeply with the ideas and content rather than skimming for interesting highlights or allowing your mind to wander. Finally, remind yourself regularly that your ability to handle and even embrace boredom is a rare competitive advantage in a world full of people who cannot sustain focus on anything that doesn't provide immediate gratification or thrill. While others are constantly seeking the next hit of excitement or novelty to keep themselves engaged, you're quietly building capabilities that compound over time into extraordinary outcomes. The most successful people in any field have learned to find deep, intrinsic satisfaction in the process of improvement itself, regardless of external recognition, applause, or excitement. They understand that mastery is not a distant destination you arrive at during a rare moment of inspiration or breakthrough. It's a lifestyle you maintain and embody through countless hours of focused, deliberate practice, often when nobody is applauding, when progress feels slow, and when nothing about the activity feels particularly thrilling or glamorous. When you develop the ability to work productively without needing constant excitement as a crutch, you become psychologically unstoppable. You'll read and study when reading feels like hard work that requires effort. You'll train and push your body when training feels repetitive and routine. You'll build and create when the process feels slow, unglamorous, and without immediate rewards. You'll learn and grow when learning demands sustained mental effort without quick payoffs or validation. And years later, when your results and achievements become so extraordinary that others assume you must have some innate natural talent, secret advantage, or lucky break, you'll know the real truth behind it all. It wasn't genetics, luck, or connections that got you there. It was your willingness to embrace boredom as the necessary price of excellence, to find meaning in mundane consistency, and to build greatness through the quiet accumulation of unremarkable days filled with remarkable levels of commitment and discipline. The path to mastery is paved with boredom. The question is, are you strong enough and committed enough to walk it without turning back? Speak this truth into your life and claim it by commenting it now. I embrace boredom to build greatness. Number 7. Act as if failure isn't an option, because regret is worse. The seventh and final principle that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary builders of their own destiny addresses the fundamental choice that determines whether you'll live a life characterized by bold achievement and fulfillment or one haunted by quiet regret and what-ifs. It's all about how you frame and approach your relationship with failure and the possibility of not succeeding in your pursuits. Every person who has ever built something truly meaningful with their existence, whether a business, a legacy, a skill, or a transformed life, has operated from one non-negotiable mindset. They treated their most important missions and goals as if failure was simply not an option they would entertain. This doesn't mean they naively believed they would never encounter setbacks, obstacles, temporary defeats, or challenges along the way. It means they decided from the very beginning that ultimately giving up, permanently quitting, or accepting defeat as a final outcome was off the table as a possibility. They committed fully, with no mental escape routes. Seneca, who endured political exile, massive financial losses, and eventually faced execution by the very emperor he once advised, understood this principle deeply when he declared, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it." When you waste your limited time and energy fearing failure or hedging your bets instead of pursuing your highest possibilities with full commitment, you don't just risk failing, you guarantee living a smaller, less vibrant life than you're capable of. This principle forces you to confront an uncomfortable but liberating truth. You're going to experience pain and difficulty regardless of the choices you make in life. The question isn't whether you'll suffer, it's whether you'll suffer from the temporary pain of discipline, effort, and growth, or from the permanent pain of regret and unrealized potential. Both paths are difficult, but only one leads to somewhere meaningful, rewarding, and without lingering what-ifs. Most people approach their goals and dreams with what I call casual commitment. They try things out tentatively, hope for positive outcomes without fully investing, and give themselves psychological escape routes or backup plans that actually undermine their primary efforts and focus. They enter challenges already mentally preparing for the possibility of quitting when things become uncomfortable, difficult, or not as expected. But the Stoic builder operates from a completely different paradigm: total, unwavering commitment. When they decide that something truly matters, whether it's their health and vitality, their relationships, their financial security, their skill development, or their contribution to the world, they psychologically burn their ships, eliminating any option to retreat back to comfortable mediocrity or safety. This creates a powerful mental state where resourcefulness, creativity, and persistence become not just desirable qualities, but absolute necessities for survival and success. When you remove the option to quit permanently, your mind is forced to become incredibly resourceful in finding ways to overcome obstacles and continue moving forward. When you decide that ultimate failure is simply not acceptable under any circumstances, your heart develops the kind of deep resilience that can weather temporary setbacks without losing sight of the long-term vision. When you commit fully and wholeheartedly to a meaningful outcome, your entire being, mind, body, and spirit, aligns behind that commitment in ways that casual, half-hearted effort never achieves. This approach isn't about toxic positivity or pretending that failure is impossible. It's about strategic psychology. It's about choosing beliefs and mental frameworks that maximize your chances of ultimate success while minimizing the risk of premature surrender or giving up too soon. It's about understanding that how you think about failure and setbacks significantly influences how you respond to them when they inevitably occur in reality. Ask yourself this crucial, soul-searching question: what frightens you more, the possibility of failing at something important despite your best efforts, or the certainty of living with deep regret about the things you never seriously attempted or committed to? For most people, when they examine these two options with complete honesty, the answer becomes crystal clear. Failure, even if it's spectacular or public, is temporary and often highly educational. It can teach you invaluable lessons. Regret, by contrast, is permanent and purely destructive, offering no lessons except the pain of avoidance. Failure can teach you critical insights about strategy, timing, preparation, or approach that make you better equipped for future attempts. Failure can build your character, resilience, and wisdom through adversity. Failure can redirect you toward better paths or opportunities that you wouldn't have discovered if everything had gone smoothly. Failure can motivate you to develop new skills and capabilities that you wouldn't have needed or pursued if success had come easily. Regret, on the other hand, teaches you nothing useful except how it feels to have avoided taking the risks that could have transformed your life for the better. Regret builds nothing positive except a growing, gnawing sense of what might have been if only you had been braver, more committed, or more willing to endure temporary discomfort for the sake of long-term gain. The Stoics train themselves rigorously to confront their fears logically rather than emotionally or reactively. They would systematically examine their concerns by asking probing questions like, what is the worst realistic outcome if I pursue this goal aggressively and don't achieve it exactly as planned? And what is the worst realistic outcome if I don't pursue it seriously at all and spend years wondering what could have been? Often, this rational analysis reveals that staying in safe, comfortable mediocrity actually carries far more long-term risk and pain than taking bold action toward meaningful goals. Life punishes the timid far more brutally and persistently than it does the bold. The timid suffer daily from the slow erosion of self-respect that comes from knowing they're not living up to their potential, while the bold suffer only temporarily from setbacks that ultimately contribute to their strength, wisdom, and growth. Start treating your most important dreams and goals like life and death missions that demand your full engagement. Want to start a business that could provide financial freedom, meaningful work, and impact? Go all in with your research, planning, networking, and execution. Don't dabble tentatively or see what happens. Commit fully, adjust based on results, but never waver in your dedication to the ultimate outcome. Want to transform your physical health and fitness? Train and eat as if your life literally depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Your energy levels, confidence, longevity, and overall quality of life are directly tied to the health choices you make consistently over time. Want to develop skills that could change your career trajectory and earning potential? Study and practice as if your future financial security and independence depend on your willingness to master these capabilities, because they probably do. This level of total commitment doesn't guarantee that you'll never face setbacks, defeats, or temporary failures along the way, absolutely not. But it does guarantee that you won't quit prematurely when things get tough, that you'll persist through difficulties that stop most people in their tracks, and that you'll extract the maximum learning, growth, and value from every experience, whether it leads to immediate success or not. Marcus Aurelius understood and embodied this when he wrote about treating obstacles as fuel for further action. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He didn't view failure as the opposite of success. He saw it as raw material that could be used to build greater success through adaptation and perseverance. Yes, you can still experience setbacks, defeats, and temporary failures even with total commitment, but a true Stoic doesn't collapse psychologically or give up from them. They recalibrate their approach, adapt to new information, learn the lessons, grow stronger and wiser, and continue moving steadfastly toward their objectives with renewed capability. From a Stoic perspective, the only true and irredeemable failure is to abandon your mission entirely because temporary obstacles or pains convinced you that your goals weren't worth the effort required to achieve them. Everything else is simply being educated by experience and shaped by challenges into someone more capable of ultimate success. When your life nears its natural end, may you be able to look back and say with complete honesty and peace, I gave everything I had to the things that mattered most to me. I held nothing back out of fear or hesitation. I took the risks that aligned with my values and pursued the goals that reflected my highest vision of what was possible. Even if you didn't achieve every specific outcome you desired along the way, you will have succeeded in the most important way possible. You will have lived fully, boldly, and without the crushing weight of wondering what if about the paths not taken. If you have reached this point in the video, understand that you are not like most people. You are not casual about your life. You are not asleep to its possibilities. You are awake to the harsh yet motivating truth that time is moving forward relentlessly, whether you are building actively or not. The Stoics never begged or prayed for an easy life. Instead, they demanded strength, resilience, and virtue from themselves. They lived by the simple yet powerful law: do not spend your life playing the role of a victim to circumstances. Spend it becoming the master architect of your own destiny. Your future does not need more empty promises or good intentions. It needs your decisive action, starting now. The 7 principles you've heard today are not mere motivation to feel good temporarily. They are practical tools to wield daily. Use them consistently. Build with discipline, clarity, momentum, powerful environments, intentional consumption, boredom mastery, and fearless commitment. If you do this without wavering, you will shock yourself with who you become and what you achieve. If you delay once again, life will pass you by, and no one can give you back that lost time. Stop bargaining with weakness. Stop begging for comfort. It is time to stand tall, breathe deeply, and act with urgency. Look life directly in the eyes and declare boldly, I am here to build, not to waste. You have everything you need within you: a mind capable of logic and reason, a heart capable of courage and passion, and time, which is running out with every passing moment. So begin today, right now, in this instant. Because the longer you wait to take control and seize your destiny, the harder it becomes to reclaim it from the grip of regret. Drop this final affirmation in the comments to solidify your commitment. I build my life with relentless discipline. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay on this powerful Stoic journey.